am.
We're live, my man. Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you, Sports Dev Series. Our favorite guest is in the building again. Straight out of Oakland, California.
San Jose,
Welcome,
California, to be
San
exact.
Jose.
The
My fault,
Greater
my
Bay
fault.
Area, Shah.
Welcome, bro. Welcome, bro.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Thank
yeah. Before I hop into it, Sports Dev brought to you by Arel Baba Fruit Powder, the most nutritious substance on the planet. Comes from the fruit pod of baobab trees that naturally dries on the tree while it is still being harvested. Packed with vitamin C, antioxidants, fiber, calcium, magnesium, potassium, great electrolyte. Get yours from arewabaobab.com. That's arewabaobab.com. And use the code word SPORT to get a discount of 25% off, including free shipping anywhere in North America. Okay, thank you. My man, how are things in California?
Well, we're here. The weather is starting to turn on us. So I'm sure me talking about cold weather here in California is probably not something you want to hear about being all the way over there in
No,
Canada. But
no, not at all.
for us, it's still cold, and anything below 70 degrees is freezing weather for us. So
Yeah, yeah. Here today, right now is it's 28 right now. So it got really cold today.
yeah, those are temperatures we will never see here. And the moment we see that here, like the birds fly south,
Hmm.
we'll start flying south.
No, but you know what, dude, man. Speaking of which, let's try and get into stuff. We have Ballon d'Or coming up. I think it's what is November 28th, 29th. Yeah,
It's at the end
29th.
of this week, definitely.
Yeah, no, 29th of November, which is the end of this week. You're right. You know, trying to see who wins. I was looking at the short list, man. You know, they got Aspilicueta, Barella from Inter, Benzema, Bonucci, De Bruyne, um, you know, Ruben Diaz from City, Fernandez, Foden. And, for me, I started listening. How did they pick all these players? First of all, outside of Salah, no other African player. Um, Mane is not on there, which kind of surprised me. I thought at very least Mane would be on there. But it's just Salah. But I started thinking, how do they pick these guys? You know, um, who votes these guys? And come to find out, a lot of the players, or a lot of the people selected for Ballon d'Or, especially the winners, are from, or the nominees are from, you know, national teams, essentially FIFA federations. So people vote from these different federations for players to be on there. And the one thing that started getting me, I was thinking, I wonder how African teams vote. So if you're Niger or Liberia, you don't have any player that could possibly get nominated. What do? You just pick a player and vote randomly? I mean, I wonder how that works. But
Well, so to talk about the Ballon d'Or, it's probably a good idea to just go over the overall history background of the Ballon d'Or. So it's a French um, football award, basically, right? I think
Mhm.
as of today, the French magazine L'Equipe is the main purveyor of the collection of the votes. And if I'm not mistaken, the Ballon d'Or has been around since the 1950s. I want to say 1956 was the first time they actually gave the award. And when
Mhm.
the award was first created, it was really created in the spirit of European football. It wasn't a global award. It was created only to award the best European player of the year at the time. But it was called the Ballon d'Or. Right. So as you can imagine, if you look at the history of the list of winners, you'll see glaringly missing names like those of Garincha and Pele and Revellino and guys of that ilk and stature that ruled world football when it came to the World Cups in the 60s and 70s. Because again, the award was not a world award, it was only a European based award. And in I think sometime about 2000 and okay, they changed the rules in 1995 to include anybody playing in Europe from any country of origin. And as you remember, this is when one George Weah immediately won the award that very first year in 1995. George Weah from Liberia, of course, our own African brother. He remains to this day the only African that has ever won the award, but he was the first non-European to win the award. But of course, as soon as they opened it up to players playing in Europe, you started seeing names like Ronaldo, the real Ronaldo, they say. Ronaldo da Lima, I think, from Brazil, the number 9 striker.
Yeah.
So I seen basically Brazilians, Kaká, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo. Those guys all won the awards in those accompanying. And in the years that followed, it still sort of has this European. It's a European centric feel. Now in 2007, I believe. Again, don't quote me exactly on the dates, but somewhere around that region, they revised the rules again to say, okay, let's open it up to everybody from around the world. But you and I both know that football is Eurocentric. In essence, the best players play in Europe. The best leagues are in Europe. So it will take moving of lots of Earth and planets for somebody outside of a league in Europe to ever win or even get nominated for the Ballon d'Or. Now, interestingly, for about 5 years or so, up to about 2015, FIFA joined up with L'Equipe to now name the Ballon d'Or the FIFA Ballon d'Or. So for those years, FIFA's World Player of the Year and the Ballon d'Or were merged into one.
Yeah, it was announced during the 2010 World Cup
Exactly.
in South Africa.
But at the end of 2015, the association between FIFA and L'Equipe was ended. Now, I don't know what the details are, but again, with my skeptical mind, anytime FIFA or anything happens with FIFA, I always think Mago Mago is in the midst of it all. But whatever the reason is, they decided to end their association. And now FIFA does what's called the world's best. They have their own award for the world's best. And while the L'Equipe has decided to keep the format of Ballon d'Or, people still look at it as European Player of the Year, but then UEFA decided to actually just recently come up with their own award for European Best. So something similar to that. So UEFA Player of the Year. So a lot of times, as you may notice, that in a given year you have multiple people winning awards, and you're like, "What's going on with this?" And then they just give a Ballon. So this is the history of the Ballon d'Or and all that. Now, very interesting, and since I'm still talking about the history, more very recently, again, they decided to do. They said, "Let's go back and retroactively open it up to the entire world and go back and do a revote for all the Ballon d'Ors that have been won over the years, and go back retroactively and see, open it up to the rest of the world, and now see who would have won it based on the opinions of all living Ballon d'Or recipients." So they went and asked them to cast votes. So the only people that were asked to cast these votes were living Ballon d'Or recipients. And I think a couple of them, like Stanley Matthews, who actually is the first recipient of the award. He's from England. He played. I think he played for Ipswich Town back in. He won in 1956. So we're talking about the old school days. Maybe a George Best was dead. Somebody, about four of the Ballon d'Or recipients over time had passed. So it was only the remaining people, and this was very recently in the 2000s and 10s. And of course, you can imagine a guy like Pelé just populated the list for about 6 or 7 years. But of course, the official winners still remain the ones that have received the award. They're not going back and moving it to them. So that's just a brief historical concept of Ballon d'Or. Now, you were mentioning something about who they're nominating. Well, I mean, it's just like most awards in sports. You know, it's going to be centered around teams with wins. Yeah, in years where, and if you looked at the list of winners in years where there were World Cups, oftentimes the winners will come from the countries that won the World Cup. Or it's a very interesting historical read, man. I'm telling you, the years when you look at when Italian league, AC Milan and Juventus were ruling the world, when back in our time when we were young boys, and all we could think about was Serie A. Serie A, that's the league. You know, when the striker scored 20 goals in that league, you know he was a striker. George Weah came from there now. Mm-hmm. But between like 1995 through 1999, it was almost one, two, three. The top three players were all either from Milan or Juventus. Italy. Netherlands has had one year where all three of their players were the top three. I think it was Van Basten, Rijkaard, and Ruud Gullit and De Boer. Things like, but all of them played in Italy too at that time. So it was just very interesting, Luis. Of course, the usual suspects will have the most winners, like the Real Madrid and Barcelona. I think both of them are tied for the most wins with 12 or something like that. Guys like Di Stefano from back in the day. There's even a Luis Suarez from Barcelona that won in the 60s. Where you look at it, so they came and reincarnated Luis Suarez in the 2000s later. So very, 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 very interesting just going back through the history. And guys like Michel Platini won it about 3 times, and so on and so forth. Anyway, let me not take up all the time talking about that, but this historical perspective, at least on that Ballon d'Or. African man. No day inside though.
At all, no day. It's crazy. I mean, when you look at it, they're like, okay, Riyad Mahrez and Mohamed Salah. That's about it.
In today's football, Mahrez, Salah, and Sadio Mane. Those are the only guys representing at that level, upper echelon level, where players will win the Ballon d'Or. Because again, that's the other part of the history of Ballon d'Or in recent times. It's pretty much just strikers. The occasional offensive midfielder who is scoring goals or producing for goals. Guys like Iniesta and Xavi. Those were guys.
What's his name? He played for Juve back in the day. He played for Italy in the 2006 World Cup.
Oh, you're talking about the defender.
The defender, yeah. He won FIFA Best Player, I believe. Or was
not Materazzi. Materazzi was the one that.
No, not Materazzi. I forgot his name. Cannavaro, yeah.
Yeah. So he won the award in 2000. Again, that's what I'm saying. Like the World Cup all years always tend towards people that win the World Cup and do something really great. Goalkeepers don't really get much love. Dino Zoff is the last one I remember placing even in the top 3. I may be wrong about that because I didn't really look that in detail. But Lev Yashin is the last one to win it outright. The Russian, the famous Russian.
You think Messi could win it again because of Copa America?
It's very possible. I mean, his name is on the list. Once Messi is on the list, there's a good chance he'll win. Like if you look at of course, the history of football in the last 20 years is the history of Messi and Ronaldo.
But if you look at what do you call it? If you want to talk trophies, Jorginho has a strong case. He's the only one to win European Championship and Champions League. Yeah,
so didn't he win an award? He won something. I don't even know what, but he has a strong case.
Mm-hmm.
People who watch football will say, yeah, sure, he has, but come on now. Yeah. This is why a guy like Messi will keep winning it. I think at some point people will get Messi and Ronaldo fatigue because they are nominated again.
I think Messi fatigue is already there.
Yeah.
I mean, Copa America, first of all, you want to talk Copa America, fine. He won Copa America, but his team didn't go anywhere close to any European championship. So for me personally, the argument to give him this again, especially when he's fallen out of form, Barca struggled, he ended up transferring out to PSG. It just doesn't seem to gel. Like the prior years where he won it, no argument, man. The guy was just phenomenal. But not this recent year. Messi was totally not himself. His team was not itself. Kudos to Argentina, but that's about it. If they give Mo Salah, I'll say, okay, they're trying to make up for the year where they really should have given him when Liverpool won, what do you call it? Won Champions League. Yeah. That was the time, recently Liverpool didn't win anything. Although he's been consistent for years, but I think that's when they should have really given it to him. This recent piece here. Jorginho, you can make the argument, 2 trophies. No other player, I think, has won Champions League and Euro 2020.
Yeah, but
If
I don't want to
so,
just give.
some
I
some
mean,
some people made the argument that if Kante had won with France, they would have given him Ballon d'Or. You know,
I think Conte actually has a better case than Jorginho, in my opinion,
yeah.
just from the eye test. But then again, I'm not gonna begrudge, but honestly, and I watch a lot of football, a lot of the Premier League, a lot of Champions League. I mean, of course, I understand Jorginho's importance to the influencing of the game,
Mhm.
but I never once thought, oh, this is the world's best player this year.
No, no, no.
And so I'm just saying, the one guy I would say, Doc Horse. He in last year, without a doubt, if they're given the award last year, which they didn't give because of COVID 2019 disrupting the 2020 seasons like it did, it was Lewandowski. He was way overdue to win it.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
honestly would not be opposed to him receiving it again this year because he's maintained that form. He's been far and away the best, most lethal striker in all of football. Let's just call a spade a spade. This award is a striker's award. If you score
Yeah,
goals, that's who gives it to you. Because
yeah.
once you argue, like even in Chelsea, I'm willing to argue that Edouard Mendy was more and made more of an impact than the Jorginho himself. They're trying to give this Forster's award to.
See, here's the thing about Jorginho, right? And to be honest with you, when he first came into Chelsea, I didn't even like him. I thought he was actually on the field because what's his name was his guy, and he came in
Sorry,
from
ball.
yeah. So I was just like, nah, this guy. But he's one of those players where you don't really see what he does when the game is going on. But after a while, there were a couple of games I said, you know what, let me watch this guy. This guy does a lot. He's one of those guys that's kind of like the heart of the team. He pumps
Yes.
the blood around. And you wouldn't know if you're watching the game because he's not blasting in goals. He's not making these crazy runs with pace down the wing. You watch it and you're like, whatever. He takes good penalties. That's all you could really say about him if you're offensive minded. But this guy does so much. He controls
Although
the
he didn't
flow.
miss that penalty that should have taken Italy to the World Cup.
Yeah, he
He
did miss
blasted
that
over the bar in the last minute, and now Italy has to go into the playoffs. So I
one.
mean,
Yeah.
those things matter. If you're going to talk about that, then we need to talk about that part too. Now, what I don't know about the voting is when the cutoff is for your performances. So that's the part that it seems a bit hazy to me, and I haven't ever really been able to get a definitive description of that. So, is it just last season's body of work, or
Yeah,
was
yeah.
was going on
Is the most recent season.
does that
From
count?
what
So if it's the most recent season, Messi counts. Messi's work, Messi might win it again. I wouldn't, and if he won it again based off of last most recent season going into Copa America, I have no problem with him winning it again. It's
But
a weak spot.
what did he do in Europe though? I understand the Copa America, but what did he do in Europe? His team didn't do anything. They were terrible last year.
Yeah, they were. They were. I mean, but he
Barca was terrible.
individually did. He scored his goals, and not a lot of them, but because his team got knocked out. Well, Barcelona
Yeah,
sucks.
they were they were a shadow of themselves last year,
In
and then now they're in
league,
crisis.
in league, he had
You
probably
know,
as one of his more dominant seasons in league. The number of assists he led La Liga in goals and assists last year, becoming the first person to ever do that, or at least the first one to do that in a long time. You know what I mean? So, and if you when you look at the team that we have, he drug that team out of being a high mid table team to finishing in the top three in the first place, or top four. That's where they finished. So, and you can see the dysfunction in Barcelona. I mean, once he left, I mean, of course, we expected that, but once he left, that team has crumbled completely. You
yeah,
know, granted. So, if you're talking about, I think some of what you're saying is really putting Messi's current season into perspective and using it to judge him for the Ballon d'Or. But if we're going to use the previous season, Messi has a shout to
oh
win,
yeah. If
especially
you're looking at a total
after
body,
winning Copa
yeah,
America and being the player of the tournament in Copa America. So it's
yeah.
like,
If you're looking at a total body of work, no question about that. I
yeah,
mean, no one can even come close to him if you want to talk about that. But you have to. They use, it's all about what have you done for me lately, right? It's what you did the most recent season, which is why a lot of people were really pushing for this Jorginho thing because they're like, listen, no other player was able to do this. I mean, hey, we'll see what happens end of the week. It'd be interesting, but as usual, these guys do what they do. The one part that got me though, when looking at the voting and they were saying, different team captains and coaches from national teams vote. And I was thinking to myself, wait a second, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you're the national team coach for Fiji, you
You get a
know,
vote and
yeah,
captain.
who do you vote for?
What do you think they're going to vote for? They'll vote for Messi or Ronaldo now. That's just the way it usually goes. This is why the Messi Ronaldo debate has been a worldwide one, because it is Ballon d'Ors. Now, I mean, I'm not going to discount the fact that they don't do their homework. I mean, they watch football like you and I do, but they're also professionals. They have a keener eye than neither you or I could ever have, because we never played at that level. So at the level they played at, who are we to poo-poo that? Hey, that's why it's a net. But it's not just them voting alone. There's also the riders, European riders that are voting that watch these things. So it's a combination of the riders, the national team coaches, and the captain. So I mean, I feel like that's actually a good way, a good balanced way to do it. But it's always political at the end.
That's the point. It's the political part that I'm thinking about, and I'm just like, okay, if you're an African country, do you automatically vote for Salah? I don't know.
Kono said Salah didn't deserve to win it.
Why? What was his argument?
He said he didn't win anything this last year, so that was his argument. So,
but you know what gets me about that win anything thing, and that's why I'll give some validity to the point you made, is that football is a team sport, man. So if you're a player and you pass the eye test and you have a phenomenal season, I mean, you just wrecked teams. Let's say you play for, I don't know, Leeds, but every time you played any of the top EPL teams, you were just a beast, and you dominated and you did well all across the board, national team. Should you get ignored just because your team didn't win any major trophy?
I personally don't think so.
It almost seems like it doesn't make any sense. You're a good player, you can't pick the team you're on sometimes.
Therein lies those. So the thing is, if you're in Fiji, like you say, not to pick on Fiji, so they have good players there too.
We love you, Fiji.
We definitely do. I definitely love Fiji.
Yeah.
But in any case, what are you seeing on TV? You're seeing the top teams. You're in whatever country you're in. More than likely, you're always going to watch Real Madrid matches. You're always going to watch Barcelona matches, Manchester United matches, and when those top teams, Bayern Munich. You may not watch any other German national team game, but you sure as heck are going to be watching the Bayern game. So you'll see Lewandowski time and time in Champions League. You're seeing the best. Those guys that are on the top that are supposedly doing the winning. Those guys are the ones that are getting seen worldwide more than anybody else, and that matters. So, fringe guys, they're going to get recognized by the recognition comes by even being on the ballot, and that's usually where it goes. But for me, I always think football is Eurocentric, but it does not mean they're not good players anywhere else. That's just the reality. But the truth is, I think we all understand that it's the top of the food chain. That's where the best players usually go to put themselves, because that's where the most money is at. So I don't have any argument from saying, okay, it should be the guys in Europe, unless somebody from outside of Europe does something that is supremely exceptional. But even that guy will be snatched up by a European country without a doubt in no time anyway. So
exactly.
That's how it is. Anyways.
It's all good, man. So we have the World Cup next year, man.
World Cup Mundial.
And it's in Qatar. And World Cup is not just about the games, it's about a party, it's about, people getting wasted, hammered, drinking, cussing out referees during the game. How's that going to work in Qatar?
I don't know.
How are people going to walk to the stadium with their bottles of beer, sing English fans singing their songs, going in there, getting hammered and taking their shirts off in the stadium? How is that going to work, man?
I couldn't tell you. I do know one thing. For me, I'm going to stay completely away from Qatar. It's not even in my consciousness to even go over there. Because what's the point of going over there? Okay, look, and this is going to sound slightly unfair to the Qataris.
Mess around to get arrested.
but and they are one of the more liberal of all those countries over there. But, I mean, I was reading on the what you should and shouldn't do. When you want to order a beer, you can't even say beer, right? You have to say something else, bubbly for wine. It's you have
What?
to use euphemisms to describe your drinking.
Are
Then
you
on top of
serious?
FIFA is FIFA. I think you sent me that article where you were talking about, and I was reading some of it, and they're saying how FIFA is trying to offer packages where you can drink inside the stadium. And look at the excuse me, the exorbitant amounts of money. I've been to World Cups before, and one of the funs of being in the World Cup is just mingling with the fans. So you're free. I would not feel safe in Qatar for apart from the obvious when we're just talking about the beer part. But in being in the Middle East with all those issues that Qatar has been having with Saudi Arabia
Yeah, man.
and all the oh boy, me, I will sit this one out completely. In fact, let me not even move on to what I was going to say because I think that's a topic for a different conversation altogether. But for me, I
Yeah,
don't have any desire to go anywhere in there. It would feel so restrictive. You have to be in one little section just to drink.
just to drink.
You
Because
can't.
that article I read, they said, you know, designated area, stadium designated area, or certain hotels where you can. So from the hotel to the stadium, Inko, what
I
am I
was
supposed
wondering
to do?
that too. So what's that?
You
That
know, if I want to hold my bottle of beer and drink it as I walk into the stadium, and I'm,
you know, my intuition tells me that the Qataris might be a little smarter than just trying to enforce all their laws completely on people who are coming to do what they've done for 40 years or more. The other thing too is that we're talking about alcohol. That's just one part of it,
this
and
is
of
one
course
part.
that's the other part. And in fact, the FIFA president just had to address that yesterday. As a matter of fact, is the
Yeah.
LGBTQ community because
Uh,
that's the other part. They don't play with that stuff out there. It's completely against the religious edicts.
mm,
And so if you're openly gay or lesbian, how would you feel going trying to go to that World Cup where they are completely telling you that you're gonna get, executed possibly or locked up? So all this points to really, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of crowds we see at the World Cup.
and what about exposure? How do they? What would they term indecent exposure? Because if a lady goes out there and feels like, hey, it's hot as hell, I want to wear my cut off jeans shorts and my skimpy shirt. Can she do that? Is that allowed?
Well, I don't know, but see, the
Yeah.
fact that we're asking these questions leads us to another bigger question. Why on earth is Qatar the country that is hosting the World Cup? What's the point? It's too much restriction. It
Too
just
much.
seems like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and the round hole doesn't even want us to fit the peg in there. There's no
Hundred
give
percent.
for that, and we can. It just stinks of so much corruption, which we've seen that over the years, where a lot of people have been indicted, people have been arrested by the United States federal agencies, where and linking it to the corruption level that we've seen in awarding the World Cup to Qatar. Man, then you start bringing up these points. First, they had to move the World Cup from summer to winter,
It's not. It's Christmas,
and
December.
then
Yeah.
now it's the drinking, the number of deaths in the construction, which quite frankly happens all the time. But still,
Slave labor. Slave labor.
it's just there's too
So,
much stuff that the World Cup itself almost feels like it's being forced upon us to go there. And
and I don't know if you've heard, they're having accommodation issues. So they're trying
Qatar,
to.
the national football team, has never ever qualified for any World Cup before. So it's just where's the football and pedigree? Even South Africa, when they gave it to them, you saw me argue they pitted Africa and gave it, but Africa has contributed to the world of
World Cup.
football.
Yeah, yeah, hey.
South Africa had been to the World Cup on at least two occasions prior to that competition.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, my brother. FIFA, I think I said this to you moments earlier today. FIFA is just stinkingly corrupt, man, and that's just the modus operandi. And it seems like all their bodies, their adjunct bodies, just copy. They're like the head honcho in the corruption, and the
Yeah.
rest of the bodies just follow along the script of corruption.
You know what I would like to see when this World Cup is over? The attendance numbers compared to the prior World Cups, and compare it to Germany and South Africa and Brazil and Russia. I'd like to see what that looks like.
What
Because
I really
I'm
want
willing
to
to
see
I'm willing
is
to
the
bet
number
you
of people that
the numbers.
traveled in, because the Qataris may fill it with their own people. They may give away free tickets. You understand? Or maybe tickets per international tickets purchased might be a better barometer. Maybe that's exactly what
Yeah,
you're.
yeah. Because even the population in Qatar, I don't foresee it being that much. There are not a lot of people there, So most of the people that will go to most of these games will be people that traveled in, right? I mean, if you look at somewhere like Germany when they hosted the World Cup, or South Africa, or Brazil, you knew for a fact, you had droves of people flying in. This year, I'm not saying people will fly in, but in comparison, I wonder what that would look like. It'd be interesting, man. We'll watch this space and see what happens, man. I mean, it should be fun. I know they're having a lot of challenges, though, for sure.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know is that somehow FIFA always seems to pull it off. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, it doesn't matter what we will watch because that's what we do. We watch football, and
Is it?
when when,
Is
when
it? Is
football
it?
starts kicking off, all focus should be on it. That's in my opinion what it should be anyway. But hopefully there are no. I'm just praying. My biggest concern is being in that area again. Just not to sound politically incorrect, but the threat. You're going to a region that is known for violence and terrorism, and you're taking a global game. It just has all eyes on. If I were, not to say, but I don't even want to put it out in the space, but I shudder. But then again, you could argue that it's the same sort of threat you get if you put it in Russia, but still, to
Yeah,
me, you're in the cove, the enclave of where the majority of the Islamic radical terrorists operate from in that region.
yeah,
I just see it as a soft target for them to do something during the World Cup.
yeah. No, I feel you, man. It's one of those things where you're like, I wonder. But it's all good, man. We'll see what happens. Speaking of which, so our beloved Super Eagles have to deal with one of the following: Cameroon, Mali, DR Congo, Egypt, Ghana. Who would you prefer to play?
None of the. I can't pick any of those teams. I've told you my opinion on multiple occasions. I do not believe currently, based on what we've seen from the Super Eagles, that we can overcome any of those teams, all five of them. So whether it's DR Congo, which would be the lowest ranked team, or followed by the Ghanaians, or did you say Cameroon and Egypt? There was one more on Mali. Let's bring all of them in order.
Yeah,
Egypt. We, no matter how good we are, we seem to have a hard time beating them home and away. It just there's that mental block, the North African organization, whatever it is, or even us playing well, and they always seem that they have that one star player that we know he will score. He's going to score one goal, whether that goal is here in Nigeria or there in Egypt. He's going to score a goal. That's almost guaranteed. So the question, man, we are struggling to score. We're struggling to
yeah,
score. We can't score. I'll come back to that. And Egypt is not flashy. There's nothing spectacular about them, but the one thing they are is organized at the back. They can lock that door. And with the patternless football that we've been displaying under Coach Gernot Rohr most for the last year and change, I just don't see us overcoming them, especially when we have to go to Egypt to go play them there. We will definitely give up goals in Egypt, and probably give up goals in Lagos too. That we've been giving up goals, and I'll come back to that. So, what's the next country? Cameroon. Prior to recently, I would say, I'm not too worried about it. We seem to have their number, but they've turned it around. Cameroon is playing some.
Cameroon looks good, man. I know out of all those teams, they're the one I actually don't want to play because
They're playing
they,
some inspired football, and they're bored
yo,
by beating us in that friendly, even though it was an end of season friendly. That the last time we
yeah,
won
man.
the
That
last
guy
time.
Anguissa, that boy is looking
Anguissa will challenge any of our midfielders and run. And right
is
now we are
solid, man.
collapsing in the midfield of football.
Yeah,
Our midfield is non-existent. Cameroon's with Anguissa alone seems to be giving them that solidity. But Cameroon, those boys, see, they play with fire when they're playing against Nigeria. That's one thing they will do. And right now we're playing fireless football. We
yeah.
play with no intensity. We play with no determination. And we go stand up against Cameroon. I don't see those. At last, it'll be 0-0-0-0 both legs. But I will right at this moment I will pip Cameroon to get that odd goal that will decide the tie. So put Cameroon and Egypt to the side. I favor those two countries over us right now, as we speak right now. Then let's move on to Mali. Perhaps that might be our best chance, honestly. although if you've been watching the African qualifiers, the Malians have been playing some very exciting football, but they've never beaten us in their history. So that historical weight is on their shoulder, and they seem to fall there. But though again, those are against Nigerian teams that show up. This Nigerian team currently has not been showing up. They just haven't been showing up. They can't put away. They can't score. They can't score at home. They can't. Their defense, once put under any kind of pressure, cracks. They always look like they're one step away from just making that critical mistake, right? And we've been playing against teams that just have been of very minimal quality, and so we haven't been paying the dear price for it, except for maybe the 4 goals we gave up against Sierra Leone and the goal, and this is at home, by the way, and the goal we gave calamitous defending that leads to a loss and to 2 losses as far as I'm concerned. Go to Ghana. I don't think we need to say anything else. If Ghana is playing Nigeria, those boys would rather die than walk out of there with a loss. And you see, the thing about this final round is it requires fight.
Oh yeah. You need to. This isn't about skill. It's not about historical wins. It's about showing up on the day and putting these guys away. That's pretty much what it's about. There's no other.
We haven't shown that at all for the last year, my brother. And I have to go by what's on tape. Now, the last one is DR Congo. People will say, "Oh, Congo," but those boys, a lot of them play together.
For TP Mazembe, right?
Quite a few of them play together in their local. Their local league is a useful league. It's not the league we have in Nigeria. That's a useless, non-functional league. Those guys, they play. Their club side teams go, and even the ones that they play in Europe, they're pretty decent guys. They have something that holds them together. They're not a scrubby team. They're not scrubs at all. So, home and away. My problem with Nigeria right now is that we have no home field advantage.
Yeah.
We're playing on a field that's not conducive to our style. It's very small. Although I have to say it was much better in the game against Cape Verde. They must have worked on it a little bit. So it felt more lushy than bumpy. And it's still somewhat bumpy. And then I can't understand, we have no pattern to our play. A lot of people are mad about the Cape Verde match. But for me, my biggest submission was that Liberia match, where you're playing on supposedly better field, even though that field wasn't that great either. I don't know, everyone kept saying it's a great field. No, the field was bumpy. And
which one? The one in Benin City?
No, the one in Morocco.
Oh, in Morocco.
Wasn't that great? Everyone was saying, "Oh, it was a great field." No, it was still a bumpy pitch. But still, enough of those excuses. And all these other African countries, when you see Niger played against somebody, I forget, the Mauritanians, they beat them 7-2. Niger, our neighbors, they scored 7 goals against a minnow. That same minnow under Gunnar Raw will struggle to complete back-to-back passes in the midfield, right? In the midfield, it's just ridiculous, man.
What do you think? What do you think about all this stuff they were saying? How you remember the articles we read about indiscipline, Henacho and some other guy. They went to their rooms. They weren't there. Balogun and what's his name almost came to fisticuffs in the locker room. And teams falling apart. When I see those sort of things, it makes me. And then I realize, like, okay, the federation is trying to fire this guy. And all of a sudden now someone is leaking all these things out to the press about, team disunity. You start to ask yourself, end of the day, okay, yeah, we know you want to fire him. We know he's still under contract. Are you trying to sway public opinion to your side to make a case for firing him? Hell, you don't need to do that, because all anyone has to do is watch a game, right? If you watch a game and you see our performance, you're like, okay, listen,
yeah, but I think sometimes context is important. So I understand what you're saying, and this is classic Nigerian way of doing things where they leak things. But the question you have to ask yourself, did these things happen? In fact, I just read another article today where more details came out. So apparently it was Kelechi Iheanacho, Chigozie Awaziem, and Kenneth Omeruo. Those 3 guys were the chief culprits that organized a sex party the night before we played Cape Verde. They missed curfew, and Gernot Raw decided to kick him off the team. That's what we heard. That's what the story coming out is. The story now says that the NFF president, Amaju Pinnick, came that because he has a good relationship with Kelechi. Kelechi went and complained to him that, they're kicking me off the team. And then Pinnick did not allow that to happen. So undermine Raw's authority. So there's the other thing. Awaziem started that match. From what I understand, it was supposed to be Akpoguma that was going to start ahead of Awaziem because he was but then somehow Awaziem started. Now, another report is coming out that's saying, no, it was Raw that decided for them to come after talking to them. Whatever the case may be, one thing no one is disputing is the fact that those three guys decided to, on the eve of a very important match, go do something of that nature, which tells you one thing in particular. There's no discipline in camp. That's just what it is.
And by the way, they did.
From day one, it was that discipline that he brought to camp. And if he's lost the one thing that he had going for him when we're playing bad football, then it's over.
It's done. No, but here's another key thing to that. They wouldn't do that at their clubs. You know, Henacho will not try Brendan Rodgers like that.
So it wouldn't have done that a year and a half ago under Raw either. So it's something. That's my point.
So what happened? What do you think happened? Let me give you some scenarios, right? Raw came in, disciplinarian. I'm the chief gaffer. This is my way. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to run this team, right? He started to implement. It was working. He was getting results. He was bringing in young guys. They were producing. Then he started to get interference from political types, from the federation, from all these things. He's like, I have a key game. I don't need any distractions. They're like, no, bring this senator. He wants to come and meet the boys. Right? And again, I'm not saying those things happen, but you and I know the possibility of those things happening are very high.
But they happened. We saw it live.
We saw it happen in Benin City, right?
Yeah, come to play with the pot bellies coming out there. Said he wanted to.
He used to play football back in the day.
That was the genesis of all.
Yeah. And then the next day they gave up a 4-0 lead. You know what I'm saying? So when you have those sort of distractions consistently, does it matter whether you bring in this Serbian guy, whatever his name is, you bring him in, it's not going to change anything. It's like if the foundation is rotten, if your federation interferes with the ability to create an environment where these guys can prepare properly for a game, then it doesn't matter who you bring in. And that's why, I agree with you that they're not passing the eye test. They're not doing the right things. Raw is but I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, based on what I know about that federation, I'm thinking to myself, this is more than that. This is more than that. This is not just about Raw. This is about organization. This is about talent identification. This is about coaches development. This is about political interference. This is
I think everything you said all can be true. But there's also some other truths, and we can't absolve Gernot Raw from this. And here's where I think things started falling apart. Like man, Chino Achebe used to write about. Seems like you're frozen on me. Oh, you're back. But anyways, it started falling apart when we started hearing about lack of payment of bonuses and salaries. So let's be realistic. You don't get paid for 8 months, 9 months, whatever number of months.
Mm-hmm.
I found it odd that Gernot Raw just stayed on the job and didn't do anything. There becomes a bit of indifference that creeps in. Okay, be that as it may. Okay, quit if you don't like it, but he stayed. Here is the problem that a lot of us Super Eagle fans have had with Gernot Raw, and I think it's at the heart of the matter. This is it right here. You invite players. New players to come into camp, right? You don't play them for a friendly match where this is where you can experiment and try new plays. You bring them on with 5 minutes left in the game to come do what? You're so rigid. You never try on new players. Guys that are, look, you can say political interference and all, but at the end of the day, you make the plays and let them fire you and they'll pay you your severance package. You keep inviting an Ahmed Musa that's stale and useless to the national team. You decide that instead of bringing in Awuni, you're going to bring a guy that's on vacation and retired, who has decided that he retired from the national team. No one forced him, by the way. Then he decided, let me leave Manchester United and go to Saudi Arabia and start collecting my pension. And that's the man you say, let me bring in to come save the national team. Leaving guys like Chukwueze on the bench. Ejuke didn't even play that.
Is Chukwueze healthy?
He's healthy now. He's playing. He was there. He didn't get, okay, whatever. Awuni is not invited. We're looking at a guy like Emmanuel Dennis tearing apart Manchester United over the weekend, not getting a call. Okay, I always like to be fair. Emmanuel Dennis is a head case. That one's very, very clear. Even looking at his celebration when he scored his goal, I was a little bit appalled by that celebration he gave. Even his teammates were like, I don't know if you saw the match against Man United.
I saw the goal. I saw the match. I saw the highlights. I didn't see
he
the
was
full
the man
match.
of the match. He was terrorized.
No, he terrorized him. He had an assist and he had a beautiful goal.
2 assists and a nice goal at the end. Beautiful assist too. Walkman like. So the rumors around is that Dennis was challenging Roy's authority. And I can understand why to a certain extent. But Dennis has that story floating around him everywhere he goes. When he was in Belgium, he had that issue. When he went to Germany, there were some rumors about it being a head case. And Watford hasn't really. But the kid, a couple of things I don't like. He got suspended for 1 game for 5 yellow cards already. We haven't even played 15 matches in the season yet. He already got suspended for 5 yellow cards. And then he gets a yellow card on his first or second game back.
Who, Dennis?
Yes, by taking his shirt off. And after scoring that goal and doing just in the 90-something minutes when the game was over, it's not like you scored the goal that – I didn't like that at all. It showed a whole bunch of indiscipline and also me, which I can understand any coach and worth his onions not inviting him for that. But based on ability alone, there's no way Ahmed Musa that guy shouldn't be on the 23-man squad. When we look at our best players –
yeah, you know Ahmed Musa is national. What they call that in federal character.
Well, look, okay,
representation based on location. Because think about it. Okay, Shehu, what's his name?
Shehu Abdullahi.
Should he be on the team too? Let's be honest.
Probably not, but
no, he plays. Doesn't he play in like Cyprus or something?
Okay, where you play matters to a certain extent, but if you fit into the team,
it's the level of competition, man.
At least do you produce when you come on the team? So I don't even care that Ahmed Musa plays in South. I mean, I care, but at the end of the day, okay, he plays in Turkey. But when he comes on the field, we see that he's not up to that level anymore.
He just loses the ball nonstop.
He was there for 5 minutes against Cape Verde. 3 times he touched the ball.
He lost
all
it.
3 times he fell down. He fell. Instead of a ball game, he fell. He can't even maintain his balance.
I was thinking to myself, watching that, I said to myself, okay, maybe they just want to give this guy his last few caps. To just that's the only justification I could have. Because if you really want to go skill for skill, there's no reason why,
So anyway, let me finish my point I'm trying to make. And I know I got off on a tangent a bit. The word coming out of camp is that the players have lost faith in him because it doesn't matter how players are performing in practice. That we're saying in practice, guys aren't even doing well, but they're keeping their shirts. They're maintaining their shirts. Things just aren't working. They're not working. I like Moses Simon a lot because he's a hard worker. He plays the instructions, but he's not really getting the job done from the perspective of offensive perspective. We have a guy like Olaina who plays wing back from time to time.
Yeah, what happened to him?
He sat on the bench for 2 games. If I'm those kind of guys, I'll be pissed.
So he was there?
He was there now. They wouldn't play him. Jamilu Collins, he was horrible against Liberia. Again, Zaidu Sanusi never got a chance to play.
He was there?
Oh boy, are you saying what I'm saying? The options we have, Raw is rigid. Now, granted,
yeah, man.
You were making an
what's
argument.
Wait. Let's talk about this for a second. What's up with the selection, man? How you leaving those guys on the bench?
Well, I don't know.
Educate is a monster. Just so that kid is a monster.
Play something that fits him. Grant will say, okay, the results, we got the results. But you and I both know that the results against Cape Verde, Central African Republic, what's the other? Who cares what the other one is? That group should have been a foregone conclusion. If we should have qualified with one game to spare, we should never have been coming down to the last game and sweating our balls because it's 1-1 and Cape Verde almost scored. If not for Ndidi blocking that shot at the end,
You did.
they had their chance to score.
Yeah. But you know what? You have to ask you. I think with AFCON coming up, we're going to see some things that'll make it look better. I think, you know, because you have a lot of games. There's a lot. The camp is longer. Depending on who the coach is. I've heard that they're in negotiations right now to see how they can terminate the contract. So we'll see. But it's all rumor. I don't. It wasn't Punch newspaper, but it's all. We'll see what happens. If they're trying to hire this Serbian guy, I have mixed feelings. I'm just like, look, this guy's never coached in Africa. He's never dealt with these guys. You're bringing in a guy who took Serbia to the World Cup and is coaching a Serbia Premier League team. It's just not the same.
It's
Um,
not,
you know,
bro.
you come to Nigeria, it's not just a team you have to deal with. You have so much, and then you know how I feel about.
One
They
thing I like
probably
about
they're
Eastern
probably not
Europeans.
going to fire Salisu Yusuf. They probably still keep him there, even if
One
they
thing I like
fire him.
about Eastern Europeans, especially that Eastern Bloc countries, they don't mince words. They don't take nonsense.
No,
You
no.
do that nonsense you're doing raw, unless the guy himself is part of the deal. And that's of course, NFF has no benefit of the doubt to be given to them anymore, and that's an unfortunate part of it.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden you're looking at these coaches they're bringing in, and you're wondering, is this one part of the deal? Are they bringing him so he can give them some part of his contract and collect money, and then they're getting paid on the side? Because if you want to be honest with yourself, $2 million is not a lot of money. NFF should have $2 million with all the money they get from FIFA. For all, you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't want to hear that nonsense that we don't have money to pay off Raw. Who decided to make such a blatantly bad contract? So a severance package for an underachieving guy like Gennett Raw.
But it's,
Well,
it's 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 the deal they sign with all these coaches, man. You bring in a coach, especially if the coach is an expert like that, the salary is guaranteed. In the event of termination, he gets paid his salary until he finds another job. So it's all of them get those deals. But here's the crazy part: if Raw was Nigerian, it'd be a lot easier to terminate that contract because they would force him into a different type of deal. You never heard about any termination of contract issues with Olise. You never heard about any challenges when they fired Siasia. You never heard about, you see what I'm saying? None of these things were an issue. They didn't see them through their full contract. So and that's the thing that you have to look at. And another thing is, some people are arguing, oh, we could get a Nigerian coach. Problem is, a Nigerian coach is not it's not competence. If you get someone like Finidi, some of these guys have earned their stripes. It's not confidence. It's they would expect that he should understand. You see what I'm saying? And that would be the problem. And if he doesn't understand, then they will label him as a problem.
yes, and then it'll make life more difficult for him.
More difficult for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I agree with you. Right now, at this moment in time in our development, a Nigerian coach. Although I do believe we need for us to really get it right, we need to get our coaches right. But it's not the coaches; it's the
It's the
interference from the
system.
NFF.
It's the system. Yeah, that's my point. That it's always been the system, and that's why the whole thing. I'm with you on the whole raw thing not performing, and if you're not performing, you need to go. But for the way I look at the bigger picture, it's the whole. If it wasn't raw, it'd be someone else. We'll be going through this. If it was Birdie Vokes at one point. It was Halisovic. It was the Swedish guy. It was end of the day what it is the system is flawed. Their system of managing the game, of development, of everything is just totally flawed. So you bring in a guy just to pick a bunch of mercenaries across Europe, which is what our players are, let's be honest. These are mercs. They go out for the highest bidder, they play their game, they get paid. We'll bring them together and try to bring them under the umbrella to play. And by the way, it's gotten worse because some of these mercs we're bringing in weren't born and raised in Nigeria. Some of them don't understand, truly understand what a Nigerian Cameroon game means. You know what I mean? They don't fully get it. It's different from when we went in 1994. You couldn't. There was no mistake about it that Anolise or Finidi or none of these. All those guys knew when you play Ghana. They knew what the implications of that game. they knew what he meant. They knew how much of they were themselves they were going to put on the line. A lot of these guys, maybe Aniwobi might know because of his uncle, but let's be honest, a lot of these guys, they're looking at it as a meal ticket so they could play in a World Cup.
Yep.
That's it. That's it. Half of them probably won't be playing for Nigeria. Let's not kid ourselves about this. So it's that kind of thing, and you have to ask yourself, man. You're bringing a coach to get all these mercs, bring them under the umbrella, get them organized, and play games and win.
Well, that's what we're bringing you for. That's what we're paying you for. Then look. I hear what you're saying, and that's good. But when Nigeria is not unique with those problems in terms of, mercenary players per se. But I mean, it's football, man. At the end of the day, it's a result-based business.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
man. It is. It is. It just for me. It
we
just
have to
stinks to
balance.
heaven because
When you look at the output, the input doesn't result. The output and the input don't converge. The amount of talent we have at our disposal, what we're seeing on the field does not even correlate at all. It doesn't even not one bit. So it was at some point we were trending up, but I think I detailed in one of the previous podcasts. I detailed when I gave Raw a score card based on increments in different time periods. I detailed when things started going wrong, and I've always maintained Raw should have been fired after the World Cup. Should have been fired after the World Cup. It hasn't gotten better since. That was it. Maybe a little rise towards AFCON. We qualify, but again, qualifying for AFCON now doesn't mean jack. The 24 countries are qualified. If Nigeria can't make it to AFCON with 24 countries, then we should just close our football program down. We should be qualifying for every single AFCON, no questions asked, because it's 24 countries. When people argue, before Raw came, we couldn't qualify for AFCON. Yes, you're right. And that's no excuse. We should always qualify anyway. But it was 16 countries then. They've increased it to 24. So even countries like Mauritania now are going for back-to-back AFCONs. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Countries like Namibia know that they can make it to AFCON now. So Nigeria should never be an issue. So qualifying for those tournaments, I don't look at that as any kind of achievement when your group consists of Petrol Station United, Angola FC, and some backwater country that what gives a rat's behind that you qualified with 2 games to spare against those? That's the bare minimum.
Well, you see, here's the thing.
In-game input, Gernot Rohr has not shown that he's able to give me any in-game input for the most part. Yeah. After the World Cup, he showed that.
But you see, here's the thing, though, right? And right before we go, if you look at the metrics they set for him, they were after the World Cup, they were low. Right? Let's be honest. If you really want to make the argument in favor of Roar, he's met every one of them.
Of course, he met them, but we all know meeting them is one thing, but how you meet them matters to us.
Yeah, but if someone tells you, okay,
and the other part too is I think this is the same thing I've been saying from day one. It's not qualifying for this last round of playoffs that matters, because we should be there anyway. That one we should have slept with our second team. We would be in that. We should be any competent coach would get our second team into the next round again, and then Cape Verde, Central African Republic, and Liberia. It's the fact that when you look at what we're playing, we know in our heart of hearts that we are not going to scale through that playoff round at this rate. So a change needs to be made. It will be made. At this point, it doesn't even matter, because I think it's become toxic now that his position is untenable. The players have already shown they don't respect him anymore. So they're not. It looks like they're not even playing out there and listening to any instructions he's given. It's over, man. So it's not a matter of buyouts, because we can't have him back at this point. Would you go play for him at this? They've undermined him completely already. Once you've undermined the man, he has nothing to say to the player. The player ain't gonna listen to him.
Yeah.
We need to stop inviting Paul Onuachu. We need to stop inviting Onuachu, Igalo, Musa. Those 3 guys should not see our camp anymore. The defenders, Truce Ekong needs to sit up. He's lost form completely. And if he can't sit up and play, his defense is calamitous. We need to find a new group of central defenders. Axe Omero should never be invited to camp again. Kelechi Iheanacho should be suspended, not allowed to come for that nonsense he pulled off. And Chigozie Awaziem needs to also face a fine. We need to restore order and discipline back in camp and boost the morale of the boys, because right now I guarantee the morale of the boys is at a low ebb. So forget about the coach. Wherever the new coach is, what we need to do is restore that morale that we had at the beginning of Gernot Raw's era that somehow he's eroded over the last few years. But it means we need to pay the boys their outstanding bonuses and keep paying them on time or whatnot. But that needs to be done.
Yeah, the federation definitely needs to get its act in order. I think that's where the key is. But all right, brother. Thank you so much. We've reached our time limit, my man. Let's watch this space. We'll connect again and kind of review some of these things we're talking about.
Yes,
Especially
so AFCON is 6 weeks away.
It is. It is. Especially when once we know who we're going to play. I wonder when does that come out?
We know who we're playing now. First match is Egypt.
No, AFCON.
Oh, December 18th.
I'm talking about the qualifiers, World Cup qualifiers. December 18th. Yeah. Okay. All right, my man. Peace, love, hair grease. Enjoy your time in Cali.
Till the next time, my brother.